All right, guys, welcome back. And now we're going to talk about one of the last pillars of OOP, aka polymorphism. Now, just looking at this word, it's really confusing, right? But all you need to know is that poly means many and morphism means form, okay? And so what this translates to in JavaScript is that OOP allows you to define methods / functions so that they can be reused multiple times, right? That's the poly, many, to achieve different forms of outcome, right? Or just different outcomes. That's the form. So you have many forms of the same function, right? Which can give you different results. And I know it can still sound a little bit confusing by just reading this. So let's take a look at some actual code examples. All right, let's go. All right, guys, let's take a look at one code example of how JavaScript practices polymorphism without actually touching JavaScript's OOP. Now, why? Because in order to properly use OOP in JavaScript, we have to understand the keyword this. And you might have heard about this before, right? And it's a really confusing keyword, but we will dive deep into what it means and what it does under the hood, right? And how it's different than most keywords in JavaScript. But that's for later on. I want to show you an example of JavaScript's polymorphism without having to touch OOP. Now, if I write this function, right? Function person that takes in 2 arguments, name and age, right? And it's just going to console.log the arguments. Now, if you didn't know, any function that takes in 1 or more arguments actually does practice the concept of polymorphism. Let's see how that works in action. Okay, so if I call this function person with my name, right, Phil, and age 33, we get console.log 33. Now, if we change this, let's say Bob, and say he's only 3 years old, he's a baby. Okay, we get Bob and he's 3. And this is what I mean by using the same concept, right, or the same recipe, the same functions, the same methods, but depending on how we want to tweak it, we can get the desired result, right? So instead of Phil, it can be Bob, or it can be anything else. Now, this example is really short because it's just one console.log statement. But imagine, right, if this function was hundreds or even thousands of lines long, right? Then creating instances can be really, really useful. That means less repetition. That means less errors, okay? Now, in a few lectures, we're going to start to learn how to use polymorphism correctly using object-oriented programming. But for now, this should give you a very simple yet clear idea about what it actually does. All right, good job, guys. I'll see you on the next one.